an academic or you're a regular guy. We have to be fearless.
FrontlineTV.com.
Dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, the chat room is always open at crusadechannel.com/chat, and we would encourage you all to go to the website, crusadechannel.com, kick the tires a little bit, look under the hood, listen for free to Crusade Channel programming, and we know that you're going to want to become a subscriber. Also, wherever you see Joe and I on social media, on YouTube in particular, but we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Right now we're on YouTube, Frontline TV, the Frontline TV, where we'd ask you to take a minute, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. But Joe Resinello, Twitter's becoming an awfully attractive alternative to YouTube, don't you think?
Without a doubt.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. There seems to be a bit of an awakening in this country as to what's going on. So yeah, please, if you see us on YouTube in particular, Frontline TV, we have about, Joe, I think Jonathan Ross on Frontline TV, we got about 65,000 subscribers, something like that. So that's doing well. We want to grow it from there, of course. So we want to thank you all for liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all that fun stuff. And finally, frontlinetv.com. If you want to throw Joe, they say tro in New Jersey. They don't say throw. They say tro. If you want to throw a couple bucks in, all right, you could throw a couple bucks in by going to the frontlinetv.com, the frontlinetv.com. Joe Resinello, let me ask you a question, okay? I am not the biggest fan of a lot of people that are out there that we are told we're supposed to be friends with, libertarians, people like that. Okay, Elon Musk is kind of impressing me a little bit now. If he wanted to make a big splash, Joe, he could decide to become a Catholic. Okay,
that would friggin' blow me out of the water, dude.
I don't even know if he is or he isn't. But if he started talking about the resurrection of Jesus Christ and the need for redemption and all that, of course, I'm going to.
He's a mutant too, though, in all honesty. I think he's a cyborg. If his eyeballs came out and there were like wires to them, I wouldn't blink. He's a mutant.
So if he was really Arnold.
He's like a Terminator type of. He could have been made somewhere.
But I'll tell you something, though. But I will give people who, let's say, for argument's sake, you know what it is, Joe? A lot of people out there, they value certain things, might not be, they might not prioritize those things the way we do. We value free speech. Catholics value free speech. In other words, we want everybody to speak their mind. I want people to speak their mind so I can turn around and answer them with Catholic truth. Okay. And, so I look at, we as Catholics don't fear the speech of other people. I don't care if it's the LGBT crowd. I don't care if it's the radical racists in the critical race theory movement, like, what's his name? Ibram Kendi or Joyce Reed or people like that, or Joy Reid. I don't care. We don't care. Free speech, let's have it, because we'll destroy you because the truth is on our side. So on the level or on the list of priorities, free speech is very high for us as Roman Catholics in America. Okay. Well, obviously, it's very high for Elon Musk also. And to the point where, Joe, I don't have 44 billion. I don't know about you. Maybe, us Italians, we got a couple of bucks in the mattress, Joe Resinello, but we don't have 44 billion tucked around somewhere. Okay. You can't even go to your 82-year-old uncle for 44 billion. Okay. He might have a couple of hundred he could throw you. Elon Musk, though, values free speech to the point of $44 billion. And I'm sorry, Joe, that says a lot. And I'm going to tell you why it says a lot. Not because we say so, because the government is saying so. And we know by their actions, because, Joe, guess what? We now live in a place where we have a ministry of truth. And we'll get into that a little bit,
Dude,
too.
I feel like we're in like a Harry Potter film. That they have a minute. I mean, literally, dude. It's almost like surreal, but it's real.
Listen.
Let's just give a little background in case people don't know what we're talking about. Basically, the Department of Homeland Security announced last week that they created a disinformation governance board, which is going to be led by Nina Jankowicz. Charles Sperling tells us the White House tried to defend the appointment of Jankowicz by the DHS in a new effort to combat disinformation. The press secretary, Jen Peppermint Psaki, described Jankowicz as an expert on online disinformation, whatever that means. With that said, just so you people know, Jankowicz has a long history of promoting online censorship, making partisan statements, and creating TikTok videos. So basically, this appointment, Joe Pasola, means one of two things. Either the DHS didn't vet her properly, because, she's a public figure now, or simply they're not pretending to be who they really are.
Right.
It's one of two things. Either
Joe
they
Rosanello,
didn't.
they know exactly who this woman is. They
know,
know.
But so does everybody else who's paying attention.
I guess part of her job, when we tell the truth about her, is going to be that when we point the finger of truth at her, she's just going to be one of those people, like a good little conformist to the regime. Is she said, look, there's another hater. No, I just pointed out what you did. You support online censorship. You support this. You support that. And she's just going to turn around. Listen, you two Catholic jamokes from New Jersey, you're haters. But wait a minute, Nina. Okay, you said this, and that's what they're going to do. So they know exactly who she is. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I mean, I think Tom, what's his name? McClintock, he's a congressman from California. I think he puts it very well. And I think from there, I think we could have some comments. Basically, this is what McClintock had to say. He said, it's the ministry of truth. It's a hallmark of any dictatorship. It's antithetical to American principles of freedom of speech. Our entire democracy is based on the free exchange of ideas. In a free society like ours, you're allowed to express your own opinion, whatever it is. It can be hateful, stupid, inaccurate, safe, in the knowledge that as long as there's a free exchange of ideas, better ideas, sounder opinions, kinder sentiments, more accurate data will always prevail. But when we have a government institution telling you what you can and cannot say, you no longer have a functioning democracy. Now, there's a mouthful. And that's where the left is taking us. That's where the left always takes society, because they cannot win a debate in an open forum, so they have to suppress the opposition. And you tell me one place where the left has seized control where ultimately they haven't tried to do that. And that is spot on. They cannot defend their positions. They cannot. And they are terrified. This is an act. I'm telling you right now, the midterms are coming. They are getting steamrolled. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal this past week. It's a Clinton advisor. And they were like outside of the Republicans doing something incredibly stupid. This is going to be catastrophic. And and basically what they were saying is Biden has to backtrack. Has to. There are too many issues that bleed into his own party. His own party is not supporting him. Inflation, gas prices, transgender ideology in grammar school.
Right.
Democrats aren't for that. Sane Democrats aren't for that. Sorry, Joe.
Sane Democrats.
But there are a lot of people who, like I said, they're not for that. And then lastly, dude, you have this. Any sane person cannot be for this, because ultimately you have to be thinking in the back of your head, it can be used against me. Just like Harry Reid, he lowered the votes for the Supreme Court. Trump got 3 Supreme Court justices because of that.
Because of Harry Reid.
Harry Reid, thank him. He did that. This is the stupidest thing. I'll be honest with you. This is just a pure act of desperation. It absolutely will not succeed.
It can't succeed. And Joe, listen, think of it this way. Look, in the last month, we have had, let's take it from the religious for a second. Let's just call ourselves what we are: conservative. in the true meaning of conservative, not what modern conservatives want us to be, okay, embracing rainbow flags and all that, but we're conservative Americans, okay? Two things in the last month that have shown some hopeful signs, if I could put it like that. Joe Rossinello on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Punching back against Disney, okay, I think that was a huge one. Not only because DeSantis and the Florida legislature held their ground, but then they took it one step forward. See, they jabbed back in defense, Joe, by defending the legislation, the parental rights legislation, but then they came across with a right cross right to the jaw when they said, "Oh, by the way, since 1968, you've had actually special protection here in Florida. We're going to review that." Okay. And now Disney is quaking because now it's going to cost them, like you always say, Joe, moolah, money. Okay. Greases the wheel. Well, now it's going to cost them money. So my point in bringing it up, it's a hopeful sign because not only did DeSantis and the Florida legislature fight back and protect the parental rights bill, they also punched Disney in the face. Okay. Now think of it this way. That's one thing in the last month. The other thing is Elon Musk taking over Twitter. And you want to know why, Joe, I say that. I want to put it into proportion for you. Again, as I stated in the beginning, and you and I have said on the show a million times, there are no other messiahs except for Jesus, okay? Elon Musk is doing something that we happen to agree with, and we applaud him for, quite frankly, okay? But at the end of the day, Joe, he's buying Twitter for $44 billion. A premium to what their market cap was. But even if their market cap was 44 billion and he's coming in at 44 billion, he now owns Twitter. Joe, they're scared. Twitter is actually a social media neophyte in terms of market cap when you compare them to Google and Apple and obviously YouTube because they're owned by Google and Facebook. Twitter is small compared to them. And yet look at how they're shaking. You want to know why? Probably because they realize people like us who value free speech are going to make sure Twitter's not going to be so small anymore. We're going to go there. Okay. Now, again, not just us, but so many other people. Look at how nervous they get when a relative market cap wise small fry like Twitter has them shaking in their boots.
Joe, they have to control the narrative. I mean, it comes right down to that. And if they don't, they lose. It comes right down. And that's the reaction to this.
Mm-hmm.
I said this like 2 shows ago. Musk, when there were rumors that Musk was going to buy Twitter, who comes out of his hole? Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
Where does he go? Menlo Park. He goes to Stanford University and makes a speech about disinformation. That was the shot across the bow. Then this comes. They know that if whoever the candidate is, it may not be Trump, it could be DeSantis. If DeSantis is say it's DeSantis for argument's sake,
go ahead.
he could communicate to the whole world via Twitter. No matter what they do, no matter how they twist what he says, and he wins. He wins.
Right.
It comes right down to that.
Joe, let me stop you for a second. And also, leaving aside that, what about what an independent organization, a real news organization like the New York Post before the election, okay, in 2020, they were taken down by Twitter when they released the Hunter Biden story. Okay. Now they're trying to backtrack on that too. But that's a bona fide fact. They took down that story. A lot of people say, leaving aside any factors, okay, any other factors that people at our audience know what we're talking about, okay, leaving aside any other factors. Joe, do you know that 17% of the people polled who said they voted for Biden said if they knew about that story that was suppressed by Twitter that the New York Post put out, that if they knew about that story, they would not have voted for Biden? 17%. Well, guess what? When there's malfeasance on the other side, or criminality in the case of Hunter Biden, okay, or at least suspected criminality, okay, let's not get taken down on YouTube. By the way, YouTube, you're next. You're next. Just so you know, you can't take us down for that. You're next. Somebody's going to come in and ring your bell. and force you to have an open platform without threatening Joe and the Frontline TV and all these good people out there at the Crusade Channel and all of us from taking us down because we say a word that that one of your little sycophants sitting there in Silicon Valley doesn't like. Okay. But remember, Joe, it's not just a DeSantis or somebody that can actually post, but it's a news organization like the New York Post, who obviously, if the New York Post is reporting on a story, shouldn't be taken down. Twitter took them down too. So it's gonna have an effect in many ways, not just the politicians themselves going back on Twitter or being on Twitter, but also news organizations making news stories more widely seen.
But you know something? Someone said in the chat room, woke is almost dead. This is a bad idea. Like, this is, frankly, you just give them the rope and they're going to hang themselves. People, like, truthfully, a couple things the Democrats aren't counting on. They're obviously thinking that the GOP is their major threat. I'm going to say their own party is their major threat. Democrats, normal people. Carvel said it a while ago. He said the people at the University of Chicago are not speaking the language of the people on the south side of Chicago. The Democratic Party is not on the same page, and they need every single vote to win.
Right.
Every single one. They have to motivate everyone. And I'll tell you this, if it isn't Trump, because obviously there's a lot of people out there, they just hate him and they're not going to pull the lever for him.
Right.
It may not be him. And if it isn't him, I'm telling you right now, Joe, they're going to get killed. This is going to be like one of these, like, Carter ass kickings. They may not even win in California. I'm telling you, people are feeling it. Like, and there are issues here that cross political lines. Like, I have to buy groceries.
Joe, I want you to talk about something. I'm going to kick it right back to you. I want you to talk about something. They're so worried. Again, I'm sure you thought along these lines. In case you haven't, I'm throwing it out there too because I want to know what your opinion is. We know that they're afraid of people who oppose their really insane ideas. You can't even call radical. I can understand. I can almost respect. We are radical in many ways, so I understand the word radical. Okay, these people are insane. I also understand that word, and so do you, and so do all the people out there at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. So we understand the difference. Here's the thing, Joe. They know we are going to go after them, so we know that they want to silence our voices. But Joe, let's be clear. The members of look at how they rely, for example, on African Americans and Hispanics. Okay. They always talk about Hispanics and African Americans, even though they use those people beyond belief. Having said that, can they really get out there and protect the teachers and the teachers' unions who want to teach kids, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-old boys, that could be girls and vice versa? You think that if Hispanic Americans who have traditionally voted Democrat or African Americans who have traditionally voted Democrat, do you think that if they really knew that, if they really knew that the Democrat Party stood for that, do you think that the Democrat, the powers that be in the Democrat Party want African Americans and Hispanic Americans and others to know that they stand for this? Of course they don't.
That, because that's what Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the head of Homeland Security, basically he said that the new entity would address the threat of so-called targeted misinformation campaigns against minority communities, particularly Latinos. And that's exactly the point. The Latino community in America keeps the DNC afloat. That is a fact. And they are not for this woke agenda. And you know something? It's funny. God works in mysterious ways. And I was actually thinking this week, and I brought it up with my wife. They're letting people in droves in, what's it called? At the southern border, obviously with the hope that they're going to be able to vote without showing ID. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's the hope. And they're hoping that they could turn Texas and Arizona. I mean, that's just, if you have eyes to see, that's what they're trying to do. But here's the interesting thing. Do you actually think that a family from El Salvador, I'm just picking a country south of the border, is for a transgender ideology? If
Absolutely
you
not.
told a man from El Salvador in his house that you're going to transition his 11-year-old son, he'd hit you over the head with a baseball bat.
He might shoot you.
You're right. If you told a woman who 9 times out of 10 is Catholic from El Salvador, if you're going to bet dollars to donuts,
I
that
bet
you
that.
are for third trimester abortion, she'd probably douse you with holy water, and then her husband would hit you over the head with a baseball bat.
Or he'll shoot you.
There you go. So the funny thing is, this very strategy of theirs could backfire. Like, these people are not for these ideas. Now, if they were traditional Democrats, you could potentially sway them. But you're going to talk the language of someone from Honduras, someone from Mexico, someone from El Salvador, most of which are Catholic, and you're going to try to push this bullcrap down their throat. Their communities are not going to support you.
Joe, let me follow up on that a little bit. I think you're spot on here at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. You're listening to the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. Joe, I think you're spot on. I want to give you an example. I grew up in the Teamsters Union. Okay, my old man was a Teamster. I was in the Teamsters Union for a while when I was in my early 20s, and many of my father's friends were men he knew from work. Okay, men who I respected. I'm not here to disparage them in any way. They were the example of what you're talking about. They were rank and file Democrats, would never, ever vote Republican. Not my father. My father always voted Republican. Okay. I think my father said the last Democrat he voted for was probably Kennedy. Okay. So my father always voted Republican. But men that he worked with in the Teamsters, they did not. When the Teamsters were pushing this ideology, and again, I was in my 20s, okay, mid-20s. So let's say when you go back to the late 80s and the 90s, that's when they started to push this then. People don't remember that, okay? But they started to push this nonsense back in the 90s, okay? A lot of these Teamsters, their attitude was, well, I get what I want from the Democrat Party, so they can have what they want from the Democrat Party. They didn't care. They had an I don't care attitude. I don't care about transgenderism. Now, would those same men have an issue if it was their kid coming home saying, hey, daddy, I want to be a girl, and meantime it's a boy? They probably would. My point is, but their attitude was they carve what they have to out of the Democrat Party. The gays carve what they have to out of the Democrat Party. The transgenders carve what they have to carve. The problem with Hispanics is Hispanics aren't, especially Hispanic Catholics and evangelicals too, okay, from Central and South America, Joe, they're not going for this crap. They're not carving anything.
Way.
There's no way they're pulling the lever. And again, I know we're generalizing a bit. There's no way they're pulling the lever for a party that supports abortion. And now not even
radical abortion. Joe, California wants to kill kids after they're born.
After they're born, transgenderism. A lot of these Hispanics. What did you call Hillary Clinton that one time? You said that she tried to be Hispanic. She's an abuela. Is that?
She carries hot sauce in her purse.
Like she's an abuela, right?
Yeah, so yeah. She's playing friggin' dominoes with Dominican guys in the Bronx.
Right. And she's eating chicharrón de pollo. Yeah, okay, whatever. But the thing is, like an abuela, you think that they're going to go for this? They're not going for this. Those grandmothers, those Hispanic grandmothers, they're not going for this nonsense. They're not going to vote for this. It's why we keep telling the Republican Party, we wish you would get your head out of your ass, okay, and start looking more towards workers and protecting workers' rights and raising wages, because those people, that's low-hanging fruit, Joe, for the Republican Party as far as I'm concerned. Let me hand it over to you.
No, I'll give you a perfect example. My barber is from East Rutherford, New Jersey. That's it's a working class town.
Mm-hmm.
He's 68 years old. His name's Richie. He's from Hudson County. Now, if people are familiar with Jersey politics, Hudson County is as blue as you can get. Hudson County blue. Democrat. Now, we're not talking about yuppified Hudson County now, like the people in Hoboken or Jersey City. We're talking years ago. He's 68 years old, Richie. So basically you're talking about like on the waterfront, Hudson County. This is
Right.
old school. Blue is blue Democrats. He told me straight out. He's like, dude, I'm from North Bergen. I am a Democrat. He's like, but this is him telling me as he's cutting my hair. He's like, this is not the Democratic Party. There are tons of Richies across America.
Right.
And you're talking about New Jersey, Hudson County, New Jersey. This is not a purple area. This is a guy who is a Democrat who has his eyes open and is looking at these people and is like, he's basically like, you're crazy. I don't even know what you're spewing. And
Joe,
that is a lot of people in America. And that is the enemy, Joe. They need Richie. They
right.
don't have Richie, they lose.
They lose. I want to address something. John Boy's with us. Hey, John Boy, what's happening, brother? John Boy's in the chat room. Remember, crusadechannel.com/chat. Crusadechannel.com is where you're listening to the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinola. John Boy said, let's talk about this, little Joe. Now, we're not going to keep this confined to only Catholics. Let's talk about a number of different groups. So John Boy makes a good point. He says, I know that liberal Catholics will still vote Democrat. Why? Liberal Catholics, in my view, in my experience, this could seem anecdotal. I don't have the statistic, okay, tend to be a little bit more wealthy. What I mean by that is upper, middle class, upper middle class, and maybe beyond that, okay? Put it like this, the Melinda Gateses of the world, even though she's super duper uber rich, okay? But your typical liberal Catholic in Livingston, New Jersey, okay? Suburban Essex County, suburban Bergen County, okay? And places like that, okay? There's a lot of people, Joe, and who are liberal. Now, I mean liberal Protestants, liberal Catholics, liberal Jews, okay? I want to take away the name, the second part of the label. You take away Catholic, Protestant, Jew. When you're liberal and you have this mindset of the Democrat Party, you literally have bought the insanity. In other words, liberal Catholics are no different. They could go to church every week. Do you know they'll sit there and in their mind they'll say, all right, it's fine if my 6-year-old boy comes home and says he's a girl. And I think he's right. My point with Joe is I think John Boy is right.
That's fine.
I think John Boy is right. Go ahead.
I just think that there's an identity crisis that people basically can't get out of their own identity. These issues are so insane. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how anyone can support them right now. And I mean this. The only people who I can make an excuse for, you have the very elites who basically live in a bubble in their very wealthy world. Nothing affects them. They don't know what normal people do. You have academics that live in their head that basically are also in a bubble in a sense. They don't know, or they don't function in like the public like market. They have tenure. They can't get fired. It's a different mindset. But if you're a normal functioning person, Democrat or Republican, and you're going to tell me you're good with the inflation as it is, you're good with paying for gas $5 to $7 a gallon, depending on where you live in America, you're good with gender ideology for kids under 9, you're good with a committee that the government says what you can and cannot say, then I'm going to be honest with you. I can't even have a conversation with you.
Well, you can't,
because you're
Joe.
crazy.
You can't. Well, that's the whole point. And I know you know this, and this is what we're trying to tell everybody out there. They're not interested in having a conversation with Joe. Let me put it like this. Let's put it right on the table. Let's say you want to argue against the Richard Levines of the world, known as Rachel Levine, who is one of the assistant secretaries.
But he's that bubble guy, though. Like he's, to be honest with you, Dick Levine's lost. Like, how about just the guy that works at like FedEx, Joe? He has 3 kids. He lives in Kearney.
Okay.
And he's a Democrat. If that guy says to me, I'm going to pull the lever for a Democrat, you're like, dude, you're getting crushed by their ideas. You do realize that, Bill or John or Tim, they're killing you. Like, but that's the disease of politics. Like, people can't get out of their own way. They can't see past. Politics should be about issues, I don't like, listen, I'll be honest with you. If the Republicans went south on certain issues, I wouldn't vote for them. And they're not perfect either. They just align a little bit more to me than the Democrats.
Right. No, and believe me, I know what you're saying. When I was bringing up, I don't even know what to call him. I guess it's a sin to even call him a him. Nowadays, you might get taken down for that at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. I did forget where I was going, but I think where I was going is when you look at, let's say, people like Rachel. Let's call him the name he now
Dick
goes
Levine.
by, Rachel Levine. All right, Dick Levine. So if you talk about Dick Levine, okay, what it's like if Dick Levine is in a conversation with somebody, okay, and Dick Levine is trying to tell that person, because that's the way he talks, Senator, I would love to have a further conversation with you. He sounds like my Aunt Christina. No disrespect to my Aunt Christina, God rest her soul. That's how, he sounds like my Aunt Christina. So so if Dick is having a conversation with somebody and Dick is trying to convince that person that the science is evolving on transgenderism, and, I have these feelings, if Dick is saying, I have these feelings and I believe that I'm a woman and blah, blah, blah. If he's only talking to one other person who really doesn't know any better, who Dick speaks in very muted tone, so it's like he comes across very pleasant, okay, they have that conversation. And Dick is then hopefully in his mind able to sway that person to his point of view. And this is where I'm going with this. The problem is when a third party comes into that conversation who Dick knows disagrees with Dick and can make a really good argument against what Dick is doing and the life that Dick is leading, Dick then wants to call the cops and tell the cops to arrest that third person because Dick doesn't want the first person he was speaking to listening to that third person and hearing another alternative point of view. That's what this comes down to. This is Dick Levine calling the cops on anybody who would challenge his narrative. This is what the Democrats are doing with this Ministry of Truth. We are going to sick the federal government on you because how dare you want to contradict our narrative to that person we were talking to and convincing to pull the lever for us.
Diana Tosh in the chat room says it perfectly. That dude's clinically insane. Yes, Diana, he is clinically insane. That is correct. He is clinically disturbed. That's what Johns Hopkins would say. That is accurate. And that's why we are in the twilight zone. But in fairness, if Dick Levine does that to anybody, you have to simply just say, I will see you in court. And all you have to say is this. This is how I would fight it. I am a Catholic. And in America, I am free to be a Catholic. And my religion says there are two genders. It's in the Bible. I'll show it to you. It says God created them male and female. By the way, Dick, science says it too. In every cell of every body's body, including yours, the DNA says that you're a man. The science says it. Now, if you want to call yourself a giraffe today, I am not playing along. And because I'm Catholic. So you're basically compelling my speech that goes against my religious beliefs that say there are two genders and you are a man. So we will see you in court. And that is what people have to do. And as long as the Constitution, listen, is the Constitution been attacked before? Absolutely. Is it a lock that you're going to win? No. Have there been radical judges? Yes. But you know something? I actually think you'll win. I do. I sincerely do. If you just say, based upon it, you're compelling me to go against my religious beliefs. And as far as what they're doing, and you're seeing legislation across America right now in states saying that teachers are not compelled to call a kid they're like a he when it's a she because it goes against their conscience. That's exactly what people have to do. And all it takes is one case, Joe, and they win. Because
Right.
I'm telling you, I actually think that it's about standing up and basically saying, all right, I'm not only going to sue you, but I'm suing you for big money. Just so you know, Dick,
I
we're
was
not
I
going
was
for
about
10.
to I was
We're
about
not
to
going for
phrase that
10
differently.
grand.
I was
We're
about to
going
phrase
for
that differently.
big money, my friend. And and we'll see what happens.
Joe,
You know what I'm saying?
I was about to get a little Nork on you there. It's like, and I'm sure you could appreciate it when you said, not only am I going to sue you, my immediate thought along the lines where you said, not only am I going to sue you, but I'm going to sue the balls off you.
No, that's
That's the way we used to say it on Bluefield Avenue in Newark. You're listening to the Front Line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. We are way in the breach on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. I will say this, along the lines of what you're saying. That's why I love these conversations with you, Joe, because we could obviously talk for hours. Unfortunately, we only have an hour. Compel. Let's talk about the word compel. See, there's two things going on here, Joe. There's one where you have them wanting to impose this ministry of truth. Now, this is in the public square in general. This is going to be on your social media, but their focus is going to be Twitter because their comrades at Facebook and YouTube and the rest of them, they're not going to need a ministry of truth czar. They already take you down when the left doesn't like what you say. Maybe you get a little bit more leeway, a little bit, not much. You could say Jesus Christ is Lord, but you can't say that the Bible teaches that marriage is between a man and a woman. All right. So like again, but here's the thing. They're going to focus the restricting free speech on Twitter. Okay, at least moving forward until Facebook and the rest of them start losing market share, then they maybe get their head out of their butt. That's on that end. They're going to try to shut down free speech. What you said though, you used the word compel. See, it's always a 1-2 punch with them, Joe. They never do one thing at a time. They always do several things at a time. So on the other end, the part where they compel speech is going to be teachers' unions, forcing teachers to have to use pronouns. In the workplace, having to watch these stupid videos that you've had to watch and I've had to watch about harassment and words can be violent and everything else. So then there's compelled speech on that end. On the one hand, you could get shut down, let's say if you're on Twitter. On the other hand, you could get fired. See, they try not to leave any stone unturned, but I want your comments. I think they're going to lose both.
I
think
think
they're
they're
going to lose
definitely going to
both.
lose. And it's funny you say this. I never told you this story. And this was before the woke madness. This was during Obama's term. At the time, I was working at JP Morgan. I'm not there anymore. And they people after work, it was at about 5:15. A friend of mine and someone else, they were talking about Caitlyn Jenner. And I made a comment. I said, I feel sorry for him. And one of the directors heard it and they told my boss and they called me in the office and confronted me on it. And they said, well, that's offensive. And I said, they offend me. That's what I said. I said, do you ever think that offends me as a Catholic? You offend me. You see, they don't, and this is where in court, it's not like when it's supposed to be a level playing field. You're free to fire me. I'm free to sue you. Because I am entitled to my opinion. It's after work, it's on the premises, but we're talking in a private conversation, and I'm sorry. I have a right to feel sorry for him as a human. He's mutilating his body. I have that right, and that's, in my view, not being disrespectful. I actually think it was charitable.
That's right.
And the conversation in terms of affirming that, it offends me. And somehow that doesn't count. But that's the angle you fight in court. That's what a lawyer does. You see, I pay taxes too. I'm an American too, and I'm a Catholic. And
Right.
as long as the Constitution says that I can be one, I have rights. And you have to frankly fight for them in this environment. I'm telling you, and I won't, if enough people did that, because again, we talk about money. You start suing these people and you start costing them bucks. believe me, the conversations end. Companies are not in the business of writing tens of millions of dollars to people who sue them.
I brought up in the beginning of the show, Joe Resinello, on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. You're listening to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Remember, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff wherever you see us on social media, particularly on the Frontline TV, on YouTube, the Frontline TV. Joe, an example of what you're talking about happened recently. So if anybody out there thinks you might be talking out of your butt, let's make it clear. Joe, before DeSantis and the Florida state legislature decided to review the special status that Disney has in Florida, Disney had already backed down. They already backed. Now, they backed down as far as let's say really pushing it, and they took more of a quote unquote neutral position. But they realized that it was a loser for them, and it could be a loser in terms of money. Now, as we said earlier, then the right cross came in, and DeSantis and the Florida state legislature decided, well, now we're going to go after you. But even now, this is why I'm bringing this up, Joe Resinello. Even the threat, just the threat of losing money was enough to make Disney back off. Now, most conservatives would have sat there, okay, and figured it was enough to just push them back. Thank God for DeSantis and the rest that actually not only pushed back, but then punched them in the face. Now it will cost them tens of millions of dollars. And as you said, we have a recent example of doing so. This is why you don't just stand your ground. You remember the movie Patton with George C. Scott?
Sure.
He's got that great speech in the beginning. And he says, I don't give a damn for anybody who says I'm going to stand or I'm going to hold my ground. He goes, nobody ever won a war by holding your ground. You win a war by attacking. That's how you win a war. Most conservatives, in the case of that I just brought up, Joe Resinello with Disney, would have held their ground. Once Disney backed down, that's not how you win the war. Then you have to go after them and punch them. And along the lines of what you're saying, that's what individuals have to do. You're going to tell me that around the water cooler, I don't have a right to say that I feel sorry for Caitlyn Jenner?
That's all I said.
I feel sorry for the guy. Okay.
I feel sorry for him.
Okay. Bank of America or whoever it is, JP Morgan or whoever it is. Now I'm going to sue the balls off you.
Well, that's right. If you fire me, that's what people have to do. It comes down to that. You have rights too.
Right.
And listen, don't get me wrong. We have to respect people. We have to be kind. We're Catholic. We have to be. If we're not, listen, but that doesn't mean that I have to play along. Like, no, I'm not putting pronouns near my name. It's obvious that you're a he. You don't have to put a pronoun there. This is ridiculous. And it's insulting to anyone who is religious, who is a Jew, who is a Muslim, who is a Christian, who is a Catholic. And no, I'm not doing it. And if you try to make me, based upon my religious right, I'm suing you.
Right.
I'm not doing it. And if a company is smart, I'm backing off. I'll just be like, you can do it if you want, but if you don't want, you don't have to either.
I'd like for you to talk about something, Joe Resinello, because you brought it up to me this past week in conversation. Okay, you mentioned about suing and an individual suing could be a very burdensome thing. Takes a lot of time. You brought up the football coach
out of Washington State.
That takes now. Tell the audience real quick, just a brief update on that. But that takes a long time.
But lawyers are quick. Is when you're suing a big entity, they get a third of it. So like you dangle that carrot at a lawyer, a big lawyer, that lawyer's arguing before the Supreme Court. In case people who don't know what happened, basically he was praying after a football game. And basically they started to put rules around what he could and couldn't do. And ultimately they said, like, I think, please, if I'm wrong, let me know next week, that the kids can't pray with you or something like that. And then he said, but I'm going to pray. Like, I'm going to publicly pray. on the middle of the field. If someone wants to come and join me, obviously they can. And they said, you can't even do that. And he said,
Right.
tough. No, I'm going to do it. That's like saying somebody like in a restaurant, if you and your wife wanted to say a quick prayer. Now, this is not like you're standing on the table and you're reading the Gospel of John to the restaurant. If I own the restaurant, I'll be honest with you, I might be like, listen, sit down. We're not reading the Gospel of John on Saturday night. You want to pray? Pray at your table. You're free to do that, but we're not getting on a bullhorn and praying the Gospel of John in the Resinello, restaurant at 9:00 at night. That's a little crazy. I'll be honest with you. That's crazy. But if you want to make the sign of the cross and pray, you're free to. Same thing with this guy. They said no. He said, guess what? I'm suing you. It went to the Supreme Court. He's going to win. He's going to win. And that's exactly what people have to do. Things like that. They're trying, keep this in mind. Obama lost more cases in front of the Supreme Court than any modern president. Some of them 9-0. These ideas stink. They stink, and they will not hold water.
Well, that's
they won't
again,
hold water. I'm telling you.
Joe, I listen, I agree, but then that's again why we're talking about this. I want to segue from something you said, because you triggered something, not in a negative way, triggered in a positive way. But remember this, Joe, if it was a couple of lesbian parents out there in the stands and they wanted to announce that Johnny, who's the cornerback for the high school that just got done playing on the football field, they wanted to go into the middle of the field and announce their lesbian motherhood over little Johnny, there would have been a standing ovation from the school administrators. But now, having said that, okay, because we know that there's a double standard, we know exactly who their target is. Their target is not the lesbian mothers. Their target is a guy who's praying to Jesus Christ. That's who their target is. But you mentioned Barry, and you know who I mean by Barry,
Oh,
Joe
good
Resinello.
Lord.
It means Barry Obama.
I can't wait
You
till
know,
he goes back to Hawaii, dude, and calls it a day.
listen. He
I
might
can't
listen.
wait.
If
I've had
DeSantis
it
in the
with that
Republican
dude.
legislature, he might just decide, you know what? I made my millions. He'll probably say to himself, I'm a good Marxist. I caused a lot of trouble. I made a lot of money. And now I'm going to go and die in my bed sometime 20, 30 years from now. And I'm going to take my money and that's all I'm going to do. That makes him, by the way, by definition, a really good Marxist, because that's the way Marxists usually die, in their bed after causing a lot of trouble and making a lot of money. Just ask Joseph Stalin and Fidel Castro. But here's the funny thing. And one of the reasons why, Joe Resinello, they want to put the clamp down on free speech. One of them is because we could go back and we could pull up things that they say or have said in the past. Now, before I read the quote, remember, that's what the woman from Libs of TikTok got in trouble for. All she did was put together, okay, what a video of what a liberal had to say about something and posted it. That's all she was doing, and she got taken down. She wasn't using her own words. She was posting their words. So that's another reason why they want to go after free speech, because they don't want you going back to prior speeches and letting other Americans know, in this case that I'm about to tell to you, what Barry Obama said in 2012, said, quote, the reason the United States protects free speech is because in a diverse society, efforts to restrict speech can quickly become a tool to silence critics and oppress minorities. Now, he doesn't mean it this way, but we know that that's exactly what they're doing to us. Okay. Now, and because given the power of faith in our lives and the passion that religious differences can inflame, the strongest weapon against hateful speech is not repression, it is more speech. Now, he was giving it in terms of a context, I guess, having to do with something religious, but he's saying that what's needed is more speech. Well, Barry Obama should be on our side then, because what we're saying and what, yes, Elon Musk is saying with his takeover of Twitter is, no, we don't need less speech. We need more speech. That's Barack Obama talking.
But he also says in that the notion that we could control the flow of information is obsolete. He's right. And that's why you're going to fail, Joe. I mean, not Joe, Barry. And here's the thing. The only way that they can make this work is if they go full Stalin, like full Stalin, where it's like, no, Tucker Carlson, we're coming in the middle of the night, we're rounding you up, and we're sending you to a gulag in North Dakota. The only way that this can work is if they go full Stalin, because you still can sue them. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see how you lose. I don't. Listen, the courts have done crazy things. I don't see how you lose. If I say, I'm just going to make it up, abortion is wrong, and they say that's hate speech, and the government, not a private entity. Now you could say, well, they kind of did that on Facebook. That's a private company. They could say, I am not going to put it on my board because it's my company. Just like Elon Musk is about to say, I'm putting everything on Twitter because it's my company. But if the government does that, I don't see how you lose if you sue them. I don't. If you say that, Joe Resinello, you cannot say that abortion is wrong, and I say, well, as a Catholic, I can. And you say, no, you can't. Well, again, I'm going to get the meanest New York law firm I could find that's going to take it pro bono until we win. No money up front, and you keep a third, and I'll keep 2/3.
I would dare say, even with the current makeup of the court, I would dare say even John Roberts would vote against that entity. Like,
That's
would
what
vote
I'm
in
saying.
favor of
No,
you.
it's too crazy. Like, as crazy as the Supreme Court has been, as radical as judges have been, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know how Sotomayor, Kagan, and Brown could allow that.
Well, the
In
reason why they
all
would,
seriousness.
well, Joe, and the reason why they would, because remember something, the ACLU has been able to make a lot of headway in the last century, mostly because they get like-minded judges to sit on the Supreme Court, or judges who were at one point members of the ACLU or contributors to the ACLU. Joe, they know what they're doing. Now, this Ketanji Brown, she is definitely voting in favor of the government if they try to take away your free
I would
speech.
probably
She's a
agree with
product
you.
of that system.
But I would
Go ahead.
agree with you, Joe. But I'll tell you this, I would probably agree with you. What it does, though, it discredits her her position.
But
Like, there's certain,
that doesn't matter to her, Joe. She's just it's like I agree with you. I agree with you. But it doesn't matter to her. She knows she's there for life, and she knows nobody's taking her away. She doesn't care, and she's a radical. She's gonna make one outrageous decision after another. God help Susan Collins and Murkowski and Mitt Romney for voting for her. But she'll be one that does that because she comes out of that Ivy League law
I would
school
agree with you there.
machine.
I'll agree with you.
Now,
She
they do
probably would
too.
do that.
Because hate speech as a legal concept, Joe, is really what they're testing. They want to test right now whether or not they could take away your First Amendment right to free speech based on the notion that what you're saying is hateful, and then the government decides exactly what hateful is. This is what they're testing right now, Joe.
Agreed.
This is not.
But I
Go
agree
ahead.
with you. I absolutely agree with you. But again, it's how you couch it. How I would couch it is, I'm speaking as a Catholic. And I'm speaking as, that's how I couch it, and that's how I defend it. And as a Catholic, I have a right to believe certain things. And I think that trumps that stupid ass, whatever you want to call it,
I
ministry
agree.
of friggin' lunacy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, listen, all you need to know about this organization, if you want to even dignify it by calling it an organization, look at the insanity that they have leading this organization. Nina Jankowicz. Okay. This woman is insane. And she doesn't care.
agreed.
She does not care. And Joe, let me tell you something. When you want fear, when you want to see fear, you look as a conservative American, you look at Nina Jankowicz. You look at her and get it through your head. She's not some innocuous, nice liberal who just happens to disagree with you. She is a revolutionary. She will take your head off in the public square. Okay. She would push for things like that because she's an insane person. She's not a liberal. Okay. She's not an American. She doesn't care about America. She cares about a leftist America, okay? And she will take you. You know how we always used to say on the show, and we still do sometimes, that when the revolution comes, they'll take us into the middle of Times Square and our heads come off. She'll be the one with the hood on, only she won't be wearing the hood. She'll have her face showing, letting you know that she'll do it to you too. When they talk about scary, oh, such and such is scary. This person's scary. Rush Limbaugh is really scary. Donald Trump's really scary. There's nothing scary about them. This woman frightens everything out of me, because if she won't get it. She won't get it, Joe, and I'm going to give you the last word. She won't get real power. But if she did, me, and a lot of whole other people, we'd be dead in the street.
Well, there's no doubt. In order to do this, and I'll say it again, they will have to go full Stalin. Full Stalin. In order to push this, they would have to go full on, round you up. And I don't think it can get to that. Well, it could. But before it got to that, it would get ugly. Like ugly, ugly, ugly. And keep this in mind, too. Recently, a cop was killed in New York City, okay? And police officers from all over the country went to St. Patrick's Cathedral. There's an aerial picture. You could find it on, wherever, if you Google it, whatever. Do you think that the police, black policemen, white policemen, Hispanic policemen, Asian policemen, they're the people who have the guns? Do you think that they're going to enforce this bullcrap? You see, ultimately, that's when a society completely crumbles. When the people, because ultimately, Joe, the people who have control are the people who have the guns, the army and the police. Like, if push comes to shove, I'm talking push comes to shove, some half-assed yuppie from Brooklyn who has a PhD in bullcrap from the University of Chicago and some hillbilly from Arkansas isn't going to settle it. Who's going to settle it are Apache helicopters, dude, who are just going to be like, cut the crap, guys. We're freaking taking you all out. And they're not going for it.
Joe Resinello, I think what you were looking for there was a guy who's got a PhD in BS.
That's right. They're not
got a
going
PhD
for
in
it.
BS.
And that's what happened in Argentina. That's what happened in Spain. That's what happened in Chile. You basically had a general who basically said, you know something? You're all crazy, and I'm not having it. And I control the guns. And that's the only way that this goes down. They would have to go full Stalin. And I'll be honest with you, I give the Army, the Marines, the Navy, and the Air Force a little bit more credit. If that happened, I think you'd get a general that just said, guess what? You're coming out of the White House, whether I'm dragging you out or you're walking out.
Joe, we gotta leave it there, Joe. We're coming up on the hour. We want to thank you all for joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. We went way into the breach tonight on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, the chat room's always open at crusadechannel.com/chat, and that is the only social media out there worth actually socializing in. We'd ask you, wherever you see Joe and I on social media, particularly YouTube for now, but we're going to expand our presence and have been trying to do so. But on YouTube, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. You'll find us at the Frontline TV. And you could support us at thefrontlinetv.com, thefrontlinetv.com. We love you all. We thank you for our prayers. Joe Resinello, great conversation tonight and an important conversation. Thank you to the King Dude for being gracious enough to allow us a platform on the Crusade Channel. So thank you to you and the entire cast and crew down there on the Crusade Channel. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.